Hey, how you doing? My name is Ryan, and today I'm reviewing knockoff and off-brand custom minifigures requested by you guys, the viewers. Thanks to your comments, I now have 28 new minifigures from TMNT, Amazon's The Boys, and Black Adam to review, so let's get right into it. We'll start off with these comp brand Ninja Turtle figures, and our first one up is Donatello. Something worth of note here, this is the first time I've ever seen a knockoff figure come with a sticker sheet. We have two stickers, one for a pizza and one for a skateboard. In fact, every single Ninja Turtle figure in this set has a similar style sticker sheet. As for the figure itself, it takes inspiration from the more cartoon design of the Ninja Turtles, and I'm pretty happy with this. The overall design is really clean. Colors are crisp, lines are nice, contrast is good, the shell piece looks great. I really have no complaints here. It's a solid figure and a really good knockoff. But how about his brother Leonardo? There's a little bit of smudging around the eyes here, as I imagine it's pretty tough to print on that headband piece, but the overall torso and legs look nice, in fact even nicer than Donatello. There's a touch more contrast with the brown here. So let's keep this party rolling with the next figure, Raphael. This figure has kind of misplaced eye print, making him look more up than right at you, which again speaks to the print quality of knockoffs. The design of the torso is different, but the contrast level is about the same as Donatello's. It's a bit less, and I wish the browns were a bit stronger here and a bit darker overall. Almost inadvertently, the varying degrees of contrast on the torso give each turtle a really distinct look. Like each stomach is a different color, each strap's a different color. I'm not sure that's intentional, but it kind of works. So how about our last turtle, Michelangelo? This might be my favorite turtle face, as I love the goofy smile, although the eyes again are a little bit smudged. Again, probably hard to print the white eyes on this orange headband. But the design on the torso is very nice with crisp black lines, nice contrast overall, and only a little bit of smudge printing on the leg pieces. These four turtle figures are wonderful knockoffs with very clean design, but how about minifigure iterations of their Michael Bay film look? How about Donatello? Right off the bat, the choice to make this figure olive green rather than bright green really diminishes the amount of contrast between the shell, the legs, and the skin. Not only that, but there's no real brown on this figure overall. And this new eye printing on the same head mold makes it look more like a frog than a turtle. Also, I thought Donatello in the movie had these glasses and a far more goofy face, so this figure's not even really accurate to the character. Overall, I'm not too happy with this version of Donatello, but I'm not sure if that's a byproduct of the Michael Bay design or the figure itself. But here's hoping Leonardo's a little bit better. And technically, yes, Leo is better. The blue does pop a lot more on the green than the light brown does. However, the weird armor on the torso has way too many thin lines that it almost reads like hair from a distance and not like bone pattern armor. The eye print on the blue headband is better, but the overall figure still feels a little bit too busy and without clear focus. But how about Raphael? Will he be better? Honestly, yes, Raphael is a little bit better. The design is a bit more clear with not as much going on. The pops of red are quite nice, and there just is a more simplified design here that makes everything readable. I even like the fact they gave Raphael his head covering and not just his headband. That's pretty accurate to the movie. So in this case, Michelangelo should be the best one, right? And from a torso and leg perspective, he kind of is. The design is immaculate here. I love the addition of his sunglasses on the torso. That's immediately recognizable and visible. The continuity between his torso and legs is quite nice. All the colors are visible. However, the face is just ugly. I really wish they gave this Mikey the same colorful cartoon face design as the previous Mikey. And again, I'm not sure if this is a byproduct of the Michael Bay designs or the figures themselves, but I really prefer the bright green cartoon look of the cartoon figures over the live action iterations of these turtles. But how about some of the auxiliary characters? How about Rocksteady? Unfortunately, Rocksteady falls into the same over-designed category as the Michael Bay figures, especially with these legs. That camo pattern is really hard to read and just comes off as noise. The torso, however, is a bit better, as the lines are crisp, clear, and dark enough to read as contrast, especially that jacket. I like the look of that quite a bit. The head and head printing are wonderful here, and I wish the same level of simplified detail was extended throughout the entire figure. But it wouldn't be Rocksteady without Bebop. Bebop is definitely better than Rocksteady in that the design of the legs are a bit more readable. The white lines are not the best on black, but they do kind of work here. The torso is wonderfully simplified, although I'm not the biggest fan of the giant bush of hair on his stomach. It kind of reads almost like the Iron Throne and not hair. The face is wonderful and the printing is fantastic on it, so I have no complaints there. Even the subtle arm printing, I think, is great. This is probably the best version of a knockoff arm printing that I've ever seen. But this figure as a whole definitely is kind of in between the cartoon turtles and the Michael Bay turtles. So how about Casey Jones? There's a really strong disconnect between the torso printing and the face. There's no single color used between the face, the arms, the hands, and the torso. That's really distracting. Also, this is one of those figures that tries to print the arm printing on a different color sleeve, and it looks more like an odd pattern than an actual arm. The legs though are quite nice, and the face is okay. I wish the mask was a little bit wider. One last turtle figure left, and it's Krang. How will he fare? Or it. Is it an it or a he? I'm not sure actually. I really wish this figure was a big fig and not a minifig. Having the Krang alien be so small on this figure, I think is a disservice to the character. The patterning on the legs is really complex, but not entirely unreadable. The torso is quite nice, minus the tiny Krang. The arms look great, but the back is crazy busy. I'm not sure you should have gone that far with it. The head print is quite nice, but again, I wish this was a big fig. This would have looked so good if it was expanded to a giant big fig, with Krang being a nice print element on the torso of the big fig. Overall, these turtle figures I think really showcase why you don't want to over-design your minifigure, as when you have too many small details in one package, it becomes very hard to read, when the simpler design can be just as effective, if not better. But let's leave the sewers and enter the wonderful world of Amazon's The Boys with our first figure, Homelander. The color palette on this figure is deep and highly saturated, and I'm not sure the lines on the torso are dark enough to read as actual abs, as the light has to kind of hit it just right for it to be visible. The cape, I love. Fantastic touch. The gold elements on the printing work wonderfully. They pop beautifully. The face kind of feels less like Lego and more like Phoenix Customs. His design style oftentimes expands the face, makes it a bit wider, a bit longer, and this feels more like that than Lego's design. It's more so the size of the face, but also the amount of line work around the mouth. If the blue was a touch lighter and the black accent lines a touch darker and thicker, this would have been a perfect Homelander minifigure. But how about Starlight? How will she fare? In my mind, Starlight is the perfect design antithesis to Homelander in that these dark black lines make the entire figure be really readable and stand out a lot more than Homelander did. In fact, I really have no complaints about the torso or leg printing. It's wonderful here. The arms, I do wish they used the cap sleeve as opposed to this printing peach on the shoulder itself. And the face, honestly, I don't mind. Again, it's a little bit wide, but it looks quite nice. It feels like its own sort of style rather than just copying Legos, and I'm okay with that as long as the style looks right. But how about Soldier Boy? Will he break the mold, or will he fit right in? The Soldier Boy print unfortunately falls into the trap that Homelander does, in that there are too many dark elements on the torso that makes these lines not as readable or the details visible at all without the light hitting it just right. I mean, look at the back. It's a giant slab of dark green with some barely visible black lines. If this figure wanted to go for a darker palette, I wish it had bright white lines, bold lines, to outline the various elements of detail. That would have made this figure a lot more legible. That being said, I do think the face looks actually more like Lego than the other two, and the shield does look quite nice. The next figure from the boys collection is Crimson Countess. This figure I think is really close to getting the right level of contrast between the black and the dark red. If there was a little bit more black on this figure, maybe the lines were a touch bolder, it would have looked really good. I will give this figure credit though in that the peach printing on the torso matches the face. But how about Stormfront? Will this be the best figure of all of them? Kind of, as this figure has an entirely different torso aesthetic that's almost the opposite of Starlight, where that one is poppy and cartoony and this one is more three-dimensional. It's kind of like when you hop on Photoshop and add a bevel to your image. It gives it a little bit of three-dimensionality, but you lose that comic style. For this figure, I think it works, but it kind of ironically makes the whole thing feel flat. And the printing on the face is a little bit off, as the eyes almost feel cross-eyed. Stormfront is an odd kind of outlier in this XINH Boys collection, but how about A-Train? How will he fare? I really like the printing on the torso for this one, although I wish the lines, again, were a bit bolder here. But the A on the belt is nice, the colors are great, even the back looks fantastic. The face looks quite nice too, but I wish the hair was a little bit higher up on the head. It feels kind of like a flat top. Again, I'm not sure if that's an issue with the piece itself, or the mold, or the design of the face, but it comes off kind of looking weird, kind of a flat hairstyle. But overall, good figure, I gotta say. But how about Queen Maeve? Unfortunately, this figure suffers from a couple issues we've seen so far. First being the peach on the torso does not match the arms or the face. The patterning on the torso is a little bit too busy for it to be entirely legible, although a couple more black lines would have made that different. And the print on the face is a little bit too low and too small, as it leaves a massive gap between the tiara piece and the hair. It ends up reading more like bad hairstyle than misprint, and that's kind of a darn shame. But how about our last figure from the boys? The Deep. This figure, I think, is the perfect blend of Starlight's comic book style and Stormfront's more 3D realistic style. There's pops of color here that are great, there's nice dark black lines, everything's legible, there's patterning on it that doesn't distract but actually enhances the print overall. I gotta say, this is a great torso design. Although the peach on the torso doesn't exactly match the face, it's pretty close, but still noticeable. On the whole, I think this series of figures from XINH are okay. The designs kind of vary in style, the amount of line weight heavily affects the readability of some figures, especially the ones with darker costumes, and the face prints vary from looking more like Phoenix Customs, to looking like LEGO, to looking just off. If you're a big fan of the boys, I think some of these figures are worth your while, but for me, I don't think any will end up on my knockoff Hall of Fame. Speaking of things that weren't that good, Black Adam. One of the reasons I held off on reviewing these figures from XINH is that I hadn't seen the movie yet. I had no time to watch it and not a lot of interest in it. But I sat down, I watched it on HBO Max, and it's okay. It's fine. It's just a movie. But as for these figures, well, let's find out. We'll start off with Black Adam himself. At first glance, too many lines, not enough bold black lines, although the color work on this is quite nice. There's pops of yellow that are very well printed. They give good color contrast. The face looks nothing like The Rock. It almost looks like Boba Fett. And if you know me, I'm not the biggest fan of the hard plastic capes, I just prefer cloth. On the whole, this figure feels kind of over-designed and without really good reason to be so. But how about a second Black Adam? Any better? I think the torso and legs are a lot worse in my opinion. I think it's way too dark, and now without the pops of yellow to have contrast, it just reads as one solid gray piece. I think the face looks even less like The Rock with these kind of wide eyes and large spot where the nose should be. But I kind of like the hooded cape piece with the printing on it. Although again, if you had gone with a regular hood piece and a cape that was printed on cloth, it would have looked even better, but would not have been enough to save this figure from looking pretty bad in my opinion. Now, how about the character we all actually went to see Black Adam for? Not Black Adam, Superman. I don't know why, but XINH has just a habit of making Superman faces look nothing like Henry Cavill. Although I will say, they've really improved their torso and leg design. This torso looks pretty phenomenal in my opinion. I love the subtle hints of highlights under each ab and pectoral to make it pop a bit more. The lines of white on the sides look great. Even the leg printing is quite nice. I just wish the cape was cloth, not plastic, and that the face had any resemblance to Henry Cavill. This face, I don't know who it is, but it sure ain't Henry Cavill. But how about a figure with a mask? That'll solve the problem. How about Dr. Fate? This figure has a really cool design in the balance of color between the black and gold, but as with Black Adam, there's so much little detail patterning on the black elements that it's really hard to read and kind of just comes off as gray. The plastic cape piece with the molded front chest piece doesn't even fit really that well on the torso, so it kind of just shimmies and shakes as you move it. But the helmet looks fantastic. That is a phenomenal molded piece and the star of the show here. So if one wasn't good enough, how about a second Dr. Fate, this time in his civilian clothing? This face print is much better and actually resembles actor Pierce Brosnan. The torso and legs are a touch dark, although I do quite like the hint of orange with the sort of sweater underneath the jacket. But the black lines on the legs are really hard to read, as the entire thing just is darker than it should be in my opinion. I wish this had more white lines than black lines to make it more visible. But at least we now have 2 copies of that awesome helmet. Now how about the rest of the JSA? How about Atom Smasher? I was worried this figure would be just as dark and muddy as the Black Adam figures, but it's better for sure. The face is barely legible though, as I wish the whites in the eyes were a touch bigger and the blue accents much brighter. And I wish the actual Atom Smasher logo had a white outline to it, Otherwise, it kind of just reads as scribbles on a textured red torso. It's a busy dark figure for sure, but it's a touch better than Black Adam. However, if you hold it about a foot away from you, you can barely read the face, which is a darn shame. But how about Cyclone? How will she fare? I think this figure benefits from having a bright green outfit, as it makes the detail lines much more visible. The purple is a nice accent touch as well, though it certainly is over-designed in the amount of tiny lines that exist on the torso. Especially those small green lines on the purple piece are just really hard to read. The face is strange, and I'm putting myself in an odd basket here, but if you look at the face and the hairstyle, it reads more like Mrs. Lovett from Sweeney Todd, the Demon Barber of Fleet Street, than Cyclone. On the whole, this figure definitely is better than a lot of the ones in this batch, but not great. So here's hoping our final figure can save this Black Adam series. It's Hawkman. And yeah, this figure is definitely one of the best of the bunch. The amount of line work on the torso is perfect, the thickness of the black lines is wonderful, the level of detail on the legs is well balanced, the gold helmet and wings, mace, and shield are phenomenal touches here. Everything looks great here, is easily legible, and gives this figure a striking appearance and first impression. So yeah, this Hawkman figure looks great, and I really wish the designers at XINH gave Black Adam this level of design care. Not detail per se, but care to know when to remove detail and when to add it. On the whole, this Black Adam series is probably about as good as the movie is. It's fine, but I'm not going to put it in the Hall of Fame, nor am I going to throw it out. Now, if you liked any of the figures I reviewed today, I bought all of them on Etsy. However, they were also available on AliExpress and BrickPanaToys.com. And if you have any more figures you want me to review on this channel, let me know in the comment section down below. And as always, if you like this video, be sure to subscribe to the channel, and thanks for watching.